Hi there, welcome to End-to-End Solution Architect session. Today, I'll be talking about provisioning virtual machine in custom network. So basically, I will be creating a custom network in Azure cloud and will provision a virtual machine inside that. So as you see, we will be using the region as US East 1. I'll be creating one virtual net, which is Vnet of this IP range 192.168.0.0/16, and we'll be creating two public subnets, public subnet 1, public subnet 2, and we will create by this IP ranges 192.168.0.0/17 and 192.168.128.0/17. We'll also create a network security group to protect our VM basically. And this is for a very quick purpose to learn how we can create the custom network in Azure, and secondly, how we can connect this virtual machine from our local system through SSH. Well, so let's proceed. Here I am logged into my Microsoft Azure portal. Since we will be creating the virtual machine and we need to create the network first. So our first thing in the network is let's create a virtual net or VNet. But even before that, let's see that what are the components required to provision a VM in Azure cloud. Suppose we don't know that what are required, whether it is a virtual net or subnet, how many subnets are required, security groups, what are the networking components basically required. Let's understand that. Okay, so let's go to virtual machine and create a virtual machine with the default parameters. Then we will learn that what components are required to be created or customized. Click on create virtual machine, select Azure virtual machine. I am just simply creating this very quickly. We have the subscription group selected. Let's create a new resource group. Suppose my new resource group name is demo01. Virtual machine is demo01. Let's create that in US East. US East 1. Okay. I'm not selecting any availability options as of now, and select the image as suppose Ubuntu the latest one 22.04 LTS. Okay. And but let's keep it SSH public key, and let me select use existing key stored in Azure, and this is my existing key stored. If you don't have this key already created, simply keep it generate new key pair. So you have added the username, kept the generate new key pair, and give a key pair name. Suppose it is demo kp means key pair. So once you will be provisioning this virtual machine, it will ask you to download that key pair. Don't miss that download because you will need that .pem file to connect your virtual machine from your local system. Okay, so at this point, as I said, that I have my already existing key pair, and so I'm just uh, selecting that key pair. Now public inbound port, yes, so allow selected port. I have this default SSH. Let's allow HTTP and HTTPS as well. Okay, at this moment we don't need any of the port because this is the virtual machine I am creating to understand what are the networking components required to provision a virtual machine. Okay, so clicking on disk, I'm not changing anything over to the disk, but only thing is that OS disk type, I'm just changing it to the standard. I don't need the premium one. Clicking on network. Now let's see what's happening over the network, because this is the network we will create manually for our next VM. Okay, so here it is saying that in parenthesis new means it is about to create this virtual network subnet public ID. Okay, because it is in parenthesis, there is no virtual network exist currently. Okay, so that's the reason it is going to create. That's fine. So we need subnet public ID and virtual network. It will be automatically created. NIC security group basic, that's fine. Now public inbound ports, as we selected HTTP, HTTPS, SSH, that's fine. I'm not changing anything and clicking over management. Even for management, let's keep everything by default. Let's click on monitoring. Monitoring, I'm not changing anything. Let's go to advanced. Advanced also, I'm not going to change anything. Just click over tags. Now it is the best practice. I will say that always use tags to identify your resources. Simply, if you don't have any tags, suppose you add your project, suppose it is a demo project for us. So it is project E2ESA demo, just you added a value over there. Okay. Now click on review and well, as you see that the validation has passed. So now let's click on create and you see that the deployment is in progress. So it has started provisioning the virtual machine. Well, the deployment is complete. Let's go to the resource, means the virtual machine we have created. Well, this is our virtual machine. It will still take few more minutes as it's saying that this virtual machine agent status is not ready. So it means that it will take just few more minutes. No need to worry about that. Okay. So as we wanted to know that when we created this virtual machine, that what are the networking components we needed to create, or by default it created of its own. Okay. So let's go to the resource group. Okay. So in search bar, if you search by resource group, select the resource group, because we remember that we created a new resource group demo 01, and whatever the resources have been created for this virtual machine, including the networking components, so it should be under demo 01. So that is the benefit for creating the resources. So when you know that you have something deployed in a resource group, so once you open that resource group, you get everything. So here you see under this resource group, we have a VM, demo 01 VM, type is virtual machine. Okay. It created a public IP. It created a network security group. It created a virtual network, created a network interface, and it also created a disk. What we understood from this, that to create a custom network for provisioning a virtual machine, we need these components. So now this is our turn that we will create each component manually, and after that we will deploy our new virtual machine inside our custom network. Okay, so the first thing is we have to create a virtual network. So let's search for Vnet. Here is Vnet. I'm opening in a new tab. Meanwhile, let me take you to this visual subnet calculator. Now I find it very useful. You can note this website link. I will share in the description also, that when you are planning to create your virtual network or subnets, that how you can calculate that what should be your subnet range or your virtual network range, how many resources you have, and how many IP you need in your subnet or VNet. Okay. So here you see that suppose your network address is 192.168.0.0 and mask bit size is 16. So this is the maximum number of hosts you can accommodate. Okay, which is 65,534. Now suppose we need to create two subnets here. So let's click on this divide, and once we click on this divide, you see that it has perfectly divided this and showing that what should be your IP ranges for subnet 1 and for subnet 2. Okay, and it's showing also the range of the addresses, usable IPs, total number of hosts. Now we have divided this one subnet into two. That's why it is showing 32,766 each. Now, if you want to create different size of subnets, suppose now you want to break the subnet 1 into 2 or 3, you just keep on clicking on this divide and you will get the IP ranges very quickly, and it is very helpful when you actually design your VNet or subnet. Okay, so let's go back. So in our case, we are actually creating two subnets for this purpose, and we actually don't need two subnets. We need only one subnet because we need to provision our VM in one subnet. But for learning purpose, I'm showing that how we can create two subnets. Okay, so two subnets means here it is one subnet. I just clicked over this divide and I have two IP ranges now for subnet 1 and subnet. I'll be using that. Okay, and what is our Vnet IP range. This is 192.168.0.0/16. Okay, so here is our Vnet. Now let's click on create. It has selected the subscription. Let's create a new resource group. So we will understand that how it is creating. So it is demo 02 custom, because it is the custom network we are creating for demo 0. So you can create as many as resource group you want. It doesn't matter. So it is basically how you want to arrange your resources. So now the virtual network name, let me give it Vnet custom, CUS for custom. Okay, 01, and I'm keeping it US East 1 and clicking on next. Next is the security part. I'm not adding any security or changing anything to enable the Azure firewall and DDoS. Okay, clicking on next. Now it is the IP addresses where we have to configure the virtual network address. So you see that by default it has taken 10.0.0.0/16, which is a private IP range. Okay, here I will update this IP range and we'll keep it /16 because we have calculated by /16. Okay, now here we will add the subnet. Okay, meanwhile you see that it is showing red because the subnet IP does not fit in any of the available address space, because I have changed the IP range. It was earlier 10.0.0.0. Now it is 192.168.0.0. So the pre-created, pre-populated subnet is actually not fitting into this Vnet. So I will just simply click on delete. Okay, and we'll create two subnets over here. So just clicked over this add a subnet. It is opening the online form for creating the subnet. And meanwhile, let me copy the IP address range for subnet. Okay, so it will be this /17. So let's go back, give a name, which is the subnet public custom 01. Okay, and here is our starting address. Okay, and it is not /24 we want. We are just creating a /17, but /20 or /17, this means that how many IP addresses actually you need. We definitely don't need this 32,768 addresses. Okay, in this case, even if I select the /24, that is great for me. Okay, so just for the learning purpose, I'm just selecting it again back so we can divide our virtual net equally into two subnets. Okay, now simply scroll down and you will find that NAT gateway, we don't need the NAT gateway. Network security group, we can create network security group. At this moment, if you click on this drop down, we don't have any network security group created. We can create the name of the network security group just by clicking on this create new, but I will separately create this network security group and will assign the network security group with the subnet that I will show. So at this moment, I am not creating anything. Root table also, there is none, and I'm not creating at this point. So clicking on add. So as you see that it has created our first subnet, and for the second subnet, I'm just copying our subnet 2 address, copying the subnet 2 address /617, giving a name the same way, subnet public custom 02. We are not adding anything over here, not even network security group. As I said, clicking on. So we have completed adding the virtual net as well as two subnets under this virtual network, and click over next. It is the tag. As I said, it is good practice to add a tag. So let's add a project tag and the value is, click on next. It is asking for the review. Well, we are good. Now let's click on create. The deployment has been completed. Let's go to the resource. Resource means the VNet we created. Well, this is our new VNet, the custom VNet basically, which we created manually with two subnets. So on the left hand side, if I click on subnets, it will show two new subnets also it has created. Here are two new subnets. Now let me open the resource group again in a different tab. And now this time we will go to the new resource group and see that we have created this one VNet and two subnets, only these three components. And this should be inside the new resource group. Here, this is our new resource group, which is demo02 custom net. And you see that we have one component, the virtual net only, the VNet. Okay, so in our resource group, so that's fine. Now at this moment, what is the next we have to create? Let's go to our demo1 resource group. This is our reference, and we know that our VNet is only created. Okay, let's go and create the network security group. Okay, so the let's go to network security group, search for network security group, and click over network security group. Here we have one network security group which we created by default during our VM1 creation, and we will create a new network security group over here. So just click on create. Our subscription is selected. We will select our existing demo2 resource group, give a name. It is NSG, which is network security group. Okay, and this is for our demo2. So added this name. Region is US East 1, because the other components we are also creating for US East 1. So that's why we selected this. Click tags. Again, quickly adding this project tags. Simply click on create. This is creating only the placeholder for this network security group because we have created the name only. Now we will actually create the rules, inbound and outbound rules inside this network security group. So let's go to this resource. And on left hand side, you see now under settings that we have inbound security rules, outbound security rules. So click over inbound security rules. There are few default security rules already created. Let me little bit explain this. You see that three network security rule have been defined by default. Okay. The name of the network security rule, port, protocol, source, destination, and action. Okay, the first coming to action, action means allow or deny. It can be allow means that the rule you are creating, it will allow the network traffic, or if it is deny, it will deny the network traffic. Okay, so the first rule, as it says, allow VNet inbound. Inbound means whatever the network traffic is coming towards your VNet. So incoming traffics are called inbound rules. And if any traffic going out from the VNet to some external destination, then it is called outbound traffic. So we are actually at this point configuring the inbound security rules. It means the inbound network traffic we are configuring. Next thing, port and protocol. So here you see that the port any. So any port, any protocol is allowed. So it means that the first rule is allowing any network traffic inside your virtual network only, not outside. So you see that source and destination both are in your virtual network. Okay, so let me open the diagram we created. So here you see that we have our VNet or virtual network, which is 192.168.0.0/16. Okay, this is our virtual net. Now our security rule says the source is virtual net, destination is virtual net. It means that any network traffic which is originating from this virtual net and going inside this virtual net is allowed. Okay, so no traffic from outside the virtual net can come, means the source cannot be outside the virtual net. If the source is outside the virtual net, it will be denied. Okay, so let's go back again. And in network security group, what happens that if you have not allowed a rule for a particular traffic, then by default that is restricted. So as you see, the third one, the third rule, which says that deny all inbound traffic from any port, any protocols, any source, any destination is denied. So only the row number 1 and 2 are allowed. Everything else, every other network traffic will be denied. Okay. Now, when we will be connecting from our local system to the virtual machine, and the virtual machine will be actually provisioned inside our new custom VNet, then we have to create a rule, right, which will allow our network traffic from outside the virtual net to inside the virtual net. So our source will be outside the virtual net and destination will be the virtual net. So how you can create that network rule? Click on add. Okay, now this source means where the traffic will originate. So when you will be connecting from your local system or on-prem system or just anywhere in this world which is outside of your virtual network you have created. It could be another virtual network also. Okay, so that is called source where the traffic will be originated. So if you click on this drop down, you will find any IP address, my IP address, service tags, application security group, anything. Okay, so at this moment I am selecting any, means so anywhere from the internet, the network traffic will be allowed into our virtual network. Okay, but for security purpose, when you are actually using it for your organization, definitely we never allow the source as any, because it is a threat. Okay, now source port, so you can particularly select the port that from which source, what is the port, whether it is 80 or 8080 or 443, which is HTTPS like this, or if you put star means from anywhere, from any port range where the traffic has been originated can be allowed into our virtual network. Okay, so now the destination actually we need to our virtual network. Okay, so in case of virtual network, so at this time I am keeping this destination also as any, or if you have the particular IP address for a particular server you want, then you can add that particular IP range. As you see that it is 10.0.0/24. So I am not selecting any IP address now. I'm just creating a role, very open role for destination any. So any source, any destination. Now service is that which type of protocol basically you want, whether it's a custom protocol, FTP, POP3, IMP. In our case we need the SSH, right? So let's search for SSH. Here it is SSH. Just click over that and it has taken the port 22. Now scroll down. Now we have to mention the action. Action can be either allow or deny, because we want to allow our network traffic from any source to any destination. That's why we are allowing that. Now priority, you see that by default it is 100 and here the priorities are 65,000, 65,001, 65,500 like this. So when actually network security rules are being checked, that which rules to pass and which rule to execute, so it starts from the lowest priority number. So it's basically the lowest priority numbers. You see that the 100 is much lesser than 65,000. So this rule which we are creating will be actually executed first before this 65,000, this priority rules. Okay, so I'm just giving a description: demo SSH inbound rule. And you see that there is one warning and it says that SSH port 22 is exposed to the internet. This is only recommended for testing. For production environment, we recommend using a VPN or private connection because it is a threat for the system. Okay, so you should not open a security rules like this from any source to any destination. Okay, just click over the add. So this is how we can add the security rules. It has created the security rules. Again, it's showing that warning because it is a very open rule we have created. As you see that source and the destination both are any. Okay. Okay. So when it will start executing this inbound security role, it will first check this priority, lowest priority number, which is 100. And it says that from port 22 for protocol TCP from any source to any destination, it will allow. Okay. Now it will start executing or assess the second one, third one, and when it will come to the fourth, okay, it will find that, okay, from any port, any protocol, which includes actually port 22 also, port protocol TCP also, from any source, any destination, deny. but as it started executing from the lowest priority number, so your network traffic for this port 22 and TCP will be allowed. Okay, so our network rule has been created to allow particularly SSH connection TCP protocol for port 22. Okay, now we have our network inbound security rules ready. We have to attach this with our subnets we have created. So let's go to our subnet. So let's go to Vnet. Here is our Vnet. So let's click on our Vnet custom 01, and on the left side we have our subnets. Here are our subnets. So first click on public custom 01 subnet, and what we are planning that in our architecture design, let me show you once more. We decided to attach this particular network security group in subnet only, subnet 1 only. So we will not attach our this particular network security group with subnet 2. Okay, so let's go back. So here is our public custom 01. Here is our network security group. I'm just adding the network security group, which is NSG demo 02. So here you see that now we have a security group attached with this subnet. So we attach our security group at subnet level. Understood? That's fine. Now let's go to our demo 1 resource group, and we see that we have our virtual network created. We have our NSG or network security group created. Now we have only the VM IP, which is a public IP. We have the network interface and disk. These three things are created when we actually provision the virtual machine. Okay, so let's go to the virtual machine now. So let's search for the virtual machine. Our network creation is done basically. So we are going to the virtual machine, clicking on create, selecting the resource group, which is for demo 2 custom. Okay, the virtual machine name, let me give it demo 202 custom. Okay, US East, that's fine. We are not changing anything. And Ubuntu server 2204, that's fine. Okay, simply coming over here and SSH public key, that's fine. Not generating new KPI using the existing stored in Azure, that's fine. Selecting the key we have already. Perfect. Scrolling down, allowed ports, and let it selected only SSH. We don't need the HTTP or HTTPS, because even if we allow the selected port HTTPS, and we don't have that HTTP or HTTPS allowed in our inbound security rules, it will not work. Okay, click next for the desk. Okay, so here again I'm just changing this premium thing to the standard one for lesser cost, and click over the networking. Here we will add our custom network components. Okay, you see that. So this is the demo 2 custom net vnet we created. Okay, the subnet, we want that in subnet 01. We have added that, selected that. Okay, now public IP. See, here it is actually saying that it is going to create a new public IP. Okay, so in our case, we didn't create the public IP. So let's search for public IP. Here are public IP addresses. So just opening in any, we see that one public IP already created, and that was for our VM1 when we created with the default parameters. Now clicking on create, selecting the resource group, scroll down, select the region, which is US East, that is fine. And this is our suppose IP public for our demo 02. Okay, and I'm selecting IPv4 only. Okay, this is standard, zone redundant, whatever it is, static. Okay, this is static because this IP address will not change even if you restart your VM. Okay, that is the purpose of creating the static IP. That's fine. Routing preference Microsoft network, that's fine. Okay, idle time in minutes, 4 minutes. Review, click on next. Again, just adding this project as tag, and it is a demo. Next is summary, and click on create. Well, so it has created the public address, IP address, and let's go back to our VM creations. And now if we click over here, so as this page is not refreshed, so I'm just going back to, okay, so let me give a refresh, and it's saying that changes you made may not be saved. Okay, that's fine. We will do it very quickly. Understand that if you are creating any components like this, so you should create the subcomponents, which are the prerequisites beforehand. Otherwise, you have to redo it again. Okay. Well, well, now quickly creating a virtual machine with the new custom network components we created. So selecting the resource group, our demo to custom net, and giving a name demo 02 custom, not changing anything, Ubuntu server 2204, that's fine. And SSH, uh, selecting the existing, keep here, okay, not changing anything. Select inbound port, we need only SSH for port 22. We are not adding any HTTP or HTTPS at this moment. Okay. And we don't need also, because we will just test that whether we are able to connect our virtual machine, which we provisioned into our custom network, or whether we are able to connect from our local system or not. So click the disk, and here I'm just changing the premium to the standard for the less cost. Here changed the standard. Click on networking. Here selecting our custom network components which we created, the Vnet, the custom one which we created. The secondly, the subnet, public subnet one, the custom one we created. Okay. Now it is the public IP. This is the public IP we created. Okay. So, well, just scrolling down, not changing anything. Click on management, not changing anything in management. Click on monitoring, not changing anything in monitoring. Click on advanced, not changing anything in advanced. Click on tags. Again, I recommend to add tags, even it is for your personal learning. So it is a good practice adding tag, and click on review create. The validation has passed. So let's click on create. The deployment is in progress. Our deployment is complete. So let's go to resource. And here is our virtual machine, which is demo 02 custom VM. This is what we have provisioned in our custom network, the Vnet and the subnets which we created and configured with network security group. Okay, so I hope you have understood that how we can create the custom networks, components, Vnet, subnet, network security group, how we can attach the network security group with the subnet. Okay, and how when we are creating the virtual machine, how we can select our custom network components to provision this virtual machine. Well, now at this moment, our virtual machine has been created. So let's go to our virtual machine dashboard, clicking on virtual machine. We have two virtual machine running. Okay, this is the second one, demo 02 custom VM is the one which we deployed in our custom network. So now what we will do, that let's try to connect this virtual machine from our local system. Basically from my laptop, I am using Windows laptop. We will need the public IP. The public IP we created separately and used it for the VM once we were provisioning the VM. Here I am copying the public IP address. Well, I will be using PuTTY, the tool, to connect to this VM instance from my Windows system. So here, as you see, the host name, I have provided this public IP address. And you remember that you had downloaded the key pair or the .pem file. Okay, so if you want to know that where you have to configure the .pem file, on the left side panel, as I am showing you, you have to go under this SSH auth and credential. Here you will browse your key pair. Well, now one thing I want to emphasize, that when you are using this PuTTY, this tool, you make sure that you are using the latest version of this. Currently, I'm using the latest version. The release is 0.78. At the moment you are watching this tutorial, make sure that you are using the latest version of PuTTY. Okay, So I'm clicking simply on open. Well, so you see that just after clicking the open, it has connected to the particular virtual machine. And as it is a Linux system, operating system, we are using Ubuntu 22.04 version. So we can run our Linux commands. Okay, so suppose sudo apt get update, and it is updating the operating system we have. So basically, we are able to connect our virtual machine from our local system, and this virtual machine we created in a custom network which we created manually. Well, so I hope this session was helpful for you. If you have any question, please feel free to drop a note to contact us at e2esolutionarchitect.com. See you in our next session.